guys, and welcome back into the Duke Wisdom Podcast. It's been a little bit over a week since I dropped the last episode. I began this thing thinking I was going to go Tuesday, Thursday every week. I think I'm going to revise that. I think I'm rethinking that as I get going on this. So going to go one episode a week every week during the off season, and then I'm going to try to ramp it back up to 2 episodes a week once the season starts up in November. But let's move on and let's move into the topic of today's episode. The topic of today's episode, as you know from the description, I'm going to be diving into every Duke player in the NBA for the 2023-24 season. I'm going to rank them. Currently, the ranking is just going to include players who are on guaranteed contracts at the moment, and that includes 23 former players who are on a full guarantee contract right now. There are also a handful of players who are kind of in limbo right now. I'll actually go ahead and tackle the players in limbo first. So the New York Knicks about a month ago announced that they were signing Trevor Keels to a 2-way contract, but literally days later announced that they actually intend to waive Trevor Keels. Does that mean that Keels can't work his way into a 2-way at some point during the season? Does that mean that he won't find his way back on an NBA roster? Absolutely not. But right now, the Knicks' plan is to keep Trevor in Worcester. So he is not on a guaranteed deal. He is not on a roster, even on a 2-way slot at the moment, which is very unfortunate following a rookie year that he didn't get a lot of opportunity or time. He didn't have the greatest showing in the summer league, and I'm sure that's what this decision based on. Another guy, though, that did have a really good summer league showing actually dropped, I think, 36 points in one game for the 76ers in the summer league, and that's DJ Stewart. He got picked up by the Boston Celtics, I believe on just an Exhibit 10 contract. So he'll be on the training camp roster and the preseason roster, but he'll be competing for a 2-way slot, and Boston actually has one open. We've got 2 guys already on him, but if you didn't know already, this year in the NBA, there will be a third 2-way slot added to each roster. So there will be 15 main roster slots and then 3 2-ways, which means 18 players per team. 30 new NBA roster slots were created this season, and DJ Stewart is hopefully vying for one of those in Boston. Some other names to go after. Harry Giles is trying to go after one of those 2-way slots potentially, or just a 15-man roster spot. Because of his injuries, Harry Giles didn't play like a full 4 seasons, and so he's now due to a new rule change, which is the name is actually kind of attributed to Harry. He could go for a 2-way slot this season, I believe. But Harry has worked out for the Magic. He's supposed to work out for the Warriors. He's trying to get back. We'll see if he has any luck with that. Quinn Cook on the Brotherhood podcast talked about how he's trying to make his NBA comeback. I don't know how much success he'll have with that. I hope that he's able to make his way back onto a 15-man roster. Austin Rivers played for the Timberwolves last year. There's been rumors about the Celtics having some interest in signing Austin. This would be his 12th year in the NBA, but he's not currently on a roster. Jabari Parker recently signed a contract in Spain. That came after he was supposed to play for the Bucks in the Summer League, but some sort of personal matter took him away from that, and he ends up signing overseas. Perhaps the biggest name missing from a roster right now, Justice Winslow. He'd be going into his 9th season in the NBA. He just played for the Trailblazers, played in rotation for the Trailblazers even, but they have yet to re-sign him, and no one else has signed him. Winslow may be the biggest name here to look out for in terms of free agents. Frank Jackson, who played in just one 10-day contract for the Jazz last season. It was his 6th year in the league. He decided to sign overseas and probably has ended his NBA time. And then Vernon Carey Jr., who played 3 years for Charlotte, then Washington, and then finally on like a end-of-season deal there with the Jazz, and he ended up playing in the Summer League. But Utah, I think, has already waived or will waive Vernon Carey. Those are the guys kind of that are fringe, almost in the league or fading out, or they're not on guarantees, but they're around, and they're names to look out for. So with that, let's go ahead and head into the 23 guys and ranking the 20. First of all, let me get this off. Duke fans should consider themselves so incredibly lucky, because years ago there was this stigma around Duke players in the NBA that they just weren't up to par. They weren't what they were in college. North Carolina had them beat. North Carolina had the Michael Jordans, the James Worthys, the Antoine Jamesons, the Vince Carters, the Rasheed Wallaces. And Duke just had top 3 picks that sort of floundered out, like Danny Ferry, like Christian Laettner, Jay Williams because of injury, but Jay Williams. Mike Dunleavy wasn't exactly, he played 15 years in the league, but he wasn't an all-star. Laettner was an all-star once, but maybe not what you would think he was going to be based on his college career. Grant Hill was sort of the exception. do they have that stigma squashed? I mean, there's only one school that even competes with Duke on NBA talent level, and that's Kentucky. No one else is even in the same stratosphere as those two schools, and Duke has some of the best players in the world, which I'll get into later on because I'm going to start from 23 and work my way up to 1. It's going to not be a lot of surprises up at the top. More contentious selections, and the decision-making happen more toward the middle. If we're being honest, the top, I think, is pretty self-explanatory, and the bottom's not too difficult either, but
want to join a community of Duke accounts publishing news, theories, and predictions on Duke athletics? Join the Duke Wisdom Network. Just go to dukewisdom.org/join network today and fill out the form with your name and social media. Or you can DM at Duke_wisdom on Twitter or Instagram. Become a part of the community of Duke fans publishing their takes today. Again, that's dukewisdom.org/join network. The DM at Duke_wisdom on Twitter or Instagram.
So let's go ahead and get it started with NBA champion Jack White at 23. Jack White these are all the players to win championships from Duke. Jeff Mullins did it with the Golden State Warriors. Danny Ferry did it with the San Antonio Spurs. Shane Battier did it twice with the Miami Heat. Kyrie Irving with the Cavs. Dante Jones with the Cavs. Quinn Cook with the Warriors, and then the Lakers. And now Jack White. Those are NBA champions from Duke. He is the first two-way player to be an NBA champion from Duke. Jack White, I mean, years ago, if you told me Jack White was going to make it to the NBA at all, I don't know if I would have believed you. I mean, he's got the motor for it, but he just fits the NBA now. He carved out a role. He worked that shot out and made himself a consistent three-point shooter, and he's just a workhorse. He's athletic. He can play well in that dunker spot. He can get rebounds. He's carved out such a workhorse role in the league that works. And he did well as a two-way player. He did really well in the G League last year for the Denver Nuggets. Ended up becoming a champion and signed a guaranteed deal with the Oklahoma City Thunder this offseason. So Jack White, now a member of the Thunder, I'm not really sure what to expect. I have him here because he averaged 1.2. He's coming off a two-way slot. I'm not really sure what Jack White's ceiling is. But, I can't say that he's not going to play a bigger role in Oklahoma City. Clearly he will, being on a 15-man roster slot. But, I hope he exceeds expectations. 22, I'm going with Dariq Whitehead, the 22nd pick in this year's draft. Dariq dealt with a lot of injuries at Duke and wasn't really able to showcase his full talent. He entered the season probably a projected top 5, at least top 10 selection in the draft, but kind of fell steadily down the draft board as his role was sort of unclear and unpolished at Duke. He was certainly a prolific three-point shooter when he took the shots. Sometimes his shot selection was shaky, but ultimately the talent is there, the skill is there, the length is there, the athleticism wasn't shown off as much as maybe you'd like, but that's probably because of injuries. But nonetheless, Brooklyn goes out and takes him 22nd in the first round of the draft. I don't know what to expect coming off the injuries, and he'll carve out a role as a 3-and-D guy, I'm sure. He's going to be a guy, I think, that's going to develop over time. I don't see him making a huge impact immediately as a rookie. Another guy I don't see making a ginormous impact as a rookie was this year's 12th overall pick to Dallas, Derek Lively II, one of 3 Blue Devils for the Mavericks right now. Derek Lively should be in position to move into a starting position in Dallas, not in his rookie year, but hopefully like in his second, maybe his third season in the league. Dallas definitely has a need for a defensive-minded, lanky big man that can hold down the middle, because that's what they're missing. They have guards that can hit shots. They have players that can score. They have three-point shooters. They have Luka Doncic. What they've been missing is an interior defensive presence. And that is why, to me, on draft night, it was very obvious that the Dallas Mavericks were going to select Derek Lively. That was one I had locked in. And I know that Derek Lively is a good fit on this roster, but I do think it is going to take Derek a little bit of time to move into a comfortable spot in a rotation in the NBA, because right now he can play the dunker spot, he can play above the rim, but he just doesn't have a whole lot of arsenal in the post. He's shown that he can hit threes in the corner in workouts. I'd like to see it in NBA games. I'd like to see it in practice. I have full confidence in Lively down the road. I don't think his impact is going to be extremely immediate, and that is why I have him at 21. At 20, I've got Wendell Moore Jr., Minnesota Timberwolves. He played in 29 games last season, first round pick in 2022. He averaged 1.4 points per game. Not a whole lot of production for Wendell last season. I'm hopeful that he can move into a bigger role. I mean, maybe he can be something like Gary Trent Jr., who didn't have much of a rookie season back in 2018-19, and he's worked his way into a heck of a player now. You'll see him pretty high on this list. And so the hope is that Wendell Moore can replicate some of that success. Be a really hardworking defender. I think he's really got to work out and polish that three-pointer. I think that's really important for Wendell. And I think it's important that Minnesota put him in kind of a point combo position. Don't just stick him on the wing. I think he was his best when he had the ball in his hands at Duke. And I hope that he can be in a similar position in Minnesota. I'm not sure if he'll be able to, but at the moment, I've got him at 20. 19, I've got Jalen Johnson. Bit of a contentious name among some Duke fans. A lot of people will probably say, don't count him. Well, he played at Duke. He counts. He didn't transfer after that. He counts. He only played 11 games at Duke, but last season he did play 70 for the Atlanta Hawks. He averaged 5.6 points per game in his second year. And now with John Collins moving on to the Utah Jazz, there's a lot of minutes opening up at that four-man slot in Atlanta. And I think that Jalen Johnson is probably one of the biggest recipients for those minutes. He should see a spike in points per game. I'm not sure, what that'll end up equating to, but he should see a spike in production. And I think that he's a really athletic player. He's a very skilled player, and I think he's got an opportunity to make a jump this year. Another Atlanta Hawk at 18, I've got A.J. Griffin. This is how spoiled Duke in the NBA is. A.J. Griffin averaged just about 9 points per game as a rookie. We're talking 9 points per game. Every single player, except for, I think, one, over A.J. Griffin, averaged double digits for at least one of the teams they played for last season in the NBA. And we're at 18 right now with Griffin, which is just crazy. Averaging 9 points per game as a rookie, nothing to be mad about. Actually, something to be very excited about. A.J. Griffin proved that he can immediately be a 3-and-D player, that he can immediately stick. He hit some very clutch shots as a rookie. He shot 39% from three, just under 90% from the free throw line. Extremely efficient player. I think that AJ can really see a big boost. It's all up to how he's used in Atlanta. I'd love to put him higher on this list, but I think that everybody else on this list is just a little bit more proven. And it speaks volumes to what the kind of level of talent and production Duke has in the NBA right now that Griffin is at 18. At 17, I've got Cam Reddish. He averaged 11 points per game in Portland after he was finally freed from the clutches of Tom Thibodeau in New York. What a horrible situation. I mean, I remember opening night last year and he dropped over 20 points per game and hit a shot to force overtime for the Knicks. And I was like, finally, Tom Thibodeau is going to use Cam Reddish and he's, going to stop rotting on this bench. He's going to be what he showed he was capable of in that playoff series against the Bucks back in 2021, back when he was playing for the Hawks. But no, Tom Thibodeau decided I'm going to stash him back on the bench and waste former top 10 pick. Player that can flat out shoot that ball, man. And so he gets traded to Portland midseason, ends up averaging 11 points there. He's averaged double digits in Atlanta before as well. He's had a lot of success. Now he signs for the Lakers. I think there's an opportunity for Reddish to play a solid role, sort of fill the vacancy that Malik Beasley left in Los Angeles. But I'm also tentative. I know that it's difficult to cut it in Los Angeles. It is very cutthroat for the Lakers. And it is because I'm so tentative about the fact that he's a Laker now that he doesn't move up a little higher on this list. I've got him 17 because I'm tentative about whether coaches will really give Reddish a chance. And because of that, I can't put him any higher on this list. 16, I got Mason Plumlee. Mason Plumlee's entering the 11th year of his NBA career. He's one of 3 Blue Devils currently in the league to have a double-digit year career. Plumlee, man, reinvented his shot last year in Charlotte, started shooting free throws and jump shots with the left hand, had the Hornets announcer going absolutely bonkers every time he shot a left-handed jumper. He's averaging 12 points per game in Charlotte before he got traded to the Clippers, ended up averaging 7.5 in Los Angeles. But Mason's still productive. He was still productive in year 10, and there's a case for him to be higher on this list. I do think that he'll probably see a little bit more of a decline. It was a contract year for Mason Plumlee last year, which probably has to do with why he played. He went and played and balled out so much, but I do expect a little bit of a decline, and I think there's a good chance that he's outperformed by Reddish or Griffin or maybe even Johnson, but I've got him and I'm comfortable with having him at 16 right now. At number 15, I've got Marvin Bagley. That's a lot lower than I thought Marvin Bagley would be on this list a couple years ago, but ultimately injuries have dictated Marvin Bagley's career. He has not played 50 or more games in a season since his rookie season. Played, I believe, 42 last year. 12 points per game last season for the Pistons. He's got a chance to put up good numbers in Detroit. He just has to be able to stay on the floor, stay healthy, and play some defense. And those are things that have been question marks for the entire 6-year career, or the entire 5-year career thus far of Marvin Bagley. And heading into year 6, there's just so many question marks. I mean, skill-wise and ceiling-wise, he could be easily in the top 10 of this list. But it's because of all those question marks that it's difficult for me to comfortably put Marvin any higher than 15. I wish that there were different circumstances when it comes to his injuries, but that's the hand that he's been dealt. At 14, I've got Luke Kennard. Luke Kennard saw a much more reduced role with the Clippers last season, but after he got traded to Memphis, man, was that three falling. Luke Kennard was an absolute pistol from three-pointer, man. 11 points per game for the Memphis Grizzlies after being traded there. I think Kennard has a really good role for the Grizzlies, and he can be set up as a three-point shooter to come in off the bench and make a lot of shots. And I like where Kennard is at 14 on this list. At 13, I have another 11th year NBA veteran, undrafted 11th year NBA veteran, Seth Curry, back with the Dallas Mavericks, either his second or maybe even his third, I think his third stint in Dallas. He averaged 9 points per game in Brooklyn last season, dealt with some injuries, saw a pretty big decrease in points per game, but I expect that number to hop back up a little bit in Dallas. There's going to be a lot of opportunities for shooting, three-pointers, perimeter play. That's how Dallas likes to run. That's how Jason Kidd runs his teams. I think that Seth Curry will benefit from that. I think Seth Curry, if he can stay healthy, will be back as a double-digit scorer. He's a veteran, 13 on this list. Number 12, I've got Grayson Allen, 10 points per game largely as a starter for the Milwaukee Bucks last season. He projects probably to be a starter again for the Bucks this year, at least in the regular season. But there's more competition this year. There's a new coach in Milwaukee, AJ Griffin's dad, Adrian Griffin, and also Malik Beasley signed in Milwaukee. And Marjon Beauchamp is a rising player that a lot of Bucks fans are very pleased about, and they think that he has a chance to go after a starting position. Plus, Pat Connaughton is still there, a champion from that 21 Bucks team. So there's a lot of competition at the 2 guard now. Even Jay Crowder back. I wouldn't expect him to start at the 2, but he could slide in at the 3 or the 4, and Chris Middleton could slide down to the 2. So there's competition for Grayson Allen's minutes in Milwaukee. And I think that he could have gotten a spot or 2 higher on this if it weren't for the increased level of competition. I like Grayson Allen's role in Milwaukee. I don't expect a whole lot of change in his points per game, but he might play a little bit less this season. At 11, I expect a pretty decent jump from this guy. At 11, in his second year in Charlotte, I've got Mark Williams. Mark Williams should be the starting center this year for the Hornets. He averaged 9 points and 7 rebounds as a rookie, which are terrific numbers. Great defender, mobile, runs the floor, great in that dunker spot. I hope that Mark Williams makes the jump I think he's going to make. Should be a double-digit scorer, maybe even a double-digit rebounder. That's definitely not out of the cards, and could be a difference maker for that Charlotte Hornets team. If they want to make a push for the play-in, for the playoffs, Mark Williams could be a very big difference maker, and he's just outside the top 10 Duke players in the NBA for this upcoming season for me. And now heading into the top 10, at number 10, I have Tre Jones. Tre Jones averaged just south of 13 points per game in San Antonio last season in his third year in the league. Also 6.6 assists per game. One of the best assist to turnover ratios in the league. That's a Jones Brothers staple. But playing under Greg Popovich, man, and there's one big change this year. I would have expected him to have put up slightly better numbers next year anyway, and the fact that he played for one of the worst teams in the league probably decreases how much that means. But now Victor Wembanyama is in San Antonio, and that is a reason to be excited for Tre Jones. Not necessarily because he's going to score all that many more points. He might average less points. I don't know. But assists. the ability to get assists and just have a heightened teamed presence will benefit Tre Jones. There will be more of a light on him. I mean, Tre Jones was getting triple doubles at the end of the season last year, and they were largely overshadowed because the Spurs weren't winning games. And well, if they're winning some more games because of Wembanyama this season, then Tre Jones will be in a position to be much improved. And I was really, really close to ranking him 9th. Ultimately, I went with his brother Tyus at 9. I gave older brother the nod. Going into his 9th year, he averaged 9 points per game for Memphis last season. Not 9. He averaged 10 points per game for Memphis last season and has been dealt to the Washington Wizards. And that is probably the biggest reason. But he did have what I would say is the best year of his NBA career last year in Memphis, 10 points per game. That's the first time he's ever averaged double digits. He was the assist to turnover ratio king for like the 3rd time in 5 seasons. But him going to Washington is going to be really, really bad, most likely. They've got Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma as their 2 best players. Tyus Jones is going to be one of the best players for the Wizards, and he will have the opportunity to play consistent starter minutes, something that he just didn't have at any point in his career until now. He's been playing second fiddle at point guard to Ja Morant. I mean, understandably so. But now he has the chance to be the starting point guard, to be the floor general in the starting unit, and really put a lot more points on the board. Have a lot of chance to initiate more offense. And I think Tyus Jones will see a production increase, and that's why I've got him at 9. And at 8, I've got Gary Trent Jr. I talked about him earlier, man. 17.4 points per game for the Raptors, 1.6 steals per game. That's that great defensive mindset and that ability to steal the ball that he showed at Duke and that has translated to the NBA. And he's found a really, really good role in Toronto, and he's been able to score the ball at a very high clip. I don't know how much better Gary Trent's going to get from here. I don't know if he's kind of maxed out or not, but nonetheless, he is a very, very capable and very good scorer, very good perimeter player who finds his way on this list, should average at least 15 points or higher next season. At number 7, I've got one of 2 Orlando Magic front court players left to name, Wendell Carter Jr. He averaged 15.2 points per game and 8.7 rebounds per game. Wendell Carter was very good last year. One of the most underappreciated big men in the NBA, largely because the Magic aren't that good. But he's a little bit undersized, maybe, for holding down the 5. There are reports that he's only like 6'9". I mean, he's reported as 6'10" by most people, though, so that point might be moot. But anyway, Wendell Carter playing alongside the guy who's going to be a couple spots higher than him on this list, Paolo Banchero. Terrific front court in Orlando, and Carter continues to get better each year of his career. He's still young, he's still in just entering his 6th year, entering the years that will become his prime. So that's very exciting. And at number 6, RJ Barrett. He saw a 0.4 point per game decrease from 20 points on the dot in his 3rd year in the league to 19.6 last year. A bit of a concern for Barrett is that he only shot 31% from 3. He'll show flashes of being able to really shoot the ball, but at times RJ really struggles to shoot. He really struggles to shoot from 3, and it's consistency. It's consistency and efficiency that holds RJ Barrett back a bit. He's so skilled, so talented, so important to what the Knicks do. He, was a big part of what helped get New York to the 2nd round of the NBA playoffs last year. And anytime you've got a player on the border of averaging 20 points per game, you have a really good player. He really can't go any lower than 6 on this list, but he could get higher on this list. I'm still waiting for RJ to make that jump that I know he's capable of offensively. I think he could be a guy averaging 23, 24, 25 points per game easily within the next year or 2. I'm waiting for that jump, but for now, he's at 6. Number 5 is the reigning NBA Rookie of the Year, currently playing for the United States FIBA World Cup team, Paolo Banchero. 20 points per game as a rookie. Broke a whole lot of records, put up a whole lot of points. Just about unanimously was Rookie of the Year, except one guy voted for Walker Kessler. It is what it is. Kessler, a terrific defender, also on the World Cup team right now. But Banchero had a fantastic rookie year. And if he can continue to build on that, he's got a shot at making an all-star case this year. Steve Kerr's using him in a very interesting way for the United States team right now, playing him a lot of small ball 5 roles. He's a bulky guy. He's a strong guy, and he's 6'10". He's capable of playing that 5-man role and an offense like Steve Kerr likes to play in Golden State, I think Paolo Banchero can really thrive in that role. He's had some really good defensive games, even blocking a lot of shots, and I think that's something he's capable of because of how athletic he is. And if he can show off those diverse roles, I think it's only up from here for Paolo Banchero. And now we get into the 4 established NBA All-Stars, 4 of the greatest Duke NBA players to be NBA All-Stars. You look all time, here's players that have been All-Stars from Duke. You got 3-time All-Star Jeff Mullins, 2-time All-Star Jack Marin, Christian Laettner was a 1-time All-Star, Grant Hill was a 7-time All-Star, Elton Brand was a 2-time All-Star, Carlos Boozer a 2-time All-Star, Luol Deng a 2-time All-Star, Brandon Ingram is a 1-time All-Star, Zion Williamson is now a 2-time All-Star, Jason Tatum is a 4-time All-Star, and Kyrie Irving is an 8-time All-Star. That's every All-Star appearance, I believe, unless I missed somebody from Duke. And at number 4 is 2020 All-Star himself, Brandon Ingram. He averaged 24.7 points per game for the Pelicans last year. He is also currently on the United States FIBA World Cup team, maybe not playing as well as he'd like to right now in that. And I think that his ceiling is higher than he's shown. And I think if Zion Williamson continues to be a question mark in New Orleans, Ingram has a real opportunity to step up, be that franchise player, and get back into the All-Star game. He's got a chance to bring the Pelicans to the playoffs and really show what he's made of, because he has, I think, the ability to be a number 1 guy on a playoff team. At number 3 is Zion Williamson, now a 2-time All-Star. He played just 29 games last season, though, enough to get him into the game. 26 points per game. Not even the highest mark of his first 4 years. In one of those 4 years, he didn't even play at all. He's only appeared in 3 different seasons. He's averaged 26 and 27 points per game in 2 All-Star seasons. But in 4 years, he's only played in 114 games. And I've talked about how, Joel Embiid only played so many games in his first 4 years, and there's been other players that are comparable. This is a pivotal year, I think, for Zion Williamson. If he's not able, there's been the off-court drama and everything. There's a lot of doubt sown in Zion Williamson's career right now. A lot of doubt surrounding that young man. And if he can't remain healthy, get on that floor, prove himself, and play in a playoff game, New Orleans has been in the playoffs. Zion Williamson has not. They've been in the play-ins. Zion Williamson has not. And if he can't step in and prove that he can remain healthy for a season, that he can play past the All-Star break, those doubts are only going to get deeper. They're only going to strengthen. And I hope for his sake that Zion is able to stay on the floor and he's able to prove a lot of the doubters wrong right now. Number 2 is Kyrie Irving. Another player with a lot of off-court drama. There's no doubt about it. The ranking of Kyrie Irving is a reflection of just how good of a basketball player he is, honestly. 27 points per game last year, 27.1. 5 rebounds, 5.5 assists in 60 games played. That is also his highest points per game in a season in which he's played over 30 games. He's, as I mentioned earlier, an 8-time All-Star. That's the most appearances of any Blue Devil ever. He's currently playing for the Mavericks alongside Luka Doncic. There's a lot of talent there, and there's an opportunity to make a solid playoff team with he and Doncic. And again, it's all about, can he stay on the floor? Can he play games? That's the biggest thing. Number 1 comes as absolutely no surprise whatsoever. It's Marshall Plum. I'm just kidding. It's Jason Tatum. Number 1's Jason Tatum. Of course, it's Jason Tatum. First Celtic to average 30-plus points per game last season. That's including the long, luxurious history of the Boston Celtics. Bill Russell, Larry Bird, Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, Kevin McHale, Bob Cousy. None of them 30 points per game. Jason Tatum did so. 2-time reigning first-team All-NBA player. He's the only Blue Devil ever to be first-team All-NBA twice. Grant Hill is the only other Blue Devil to ever do it. He was in 1997. Tatum is also the reigning All-Star Game MVP. Of course, he was the first ever Eastern Conference Finals MVP in 2022. He has emerged as already probably one of the top 3 Blue Devils all time in the NBA. People could make the case he's already the greatest Duke player in the NBA in just 6 years. He's entering year 7. Wants to take another stab at trying to get the Celtics back to the finals. Duke fans, I know, probably something that they'd love to see is a Duke player winning finals MVP. That is something that has never happened. If it's going to happen in the near future, one would think it'll probably be Jason Tatum. Boston has added Porzingis in hopes that they can make it back to the finals and make a championship push. They were a game away from the finals last season. Certainly will be back in the mix again this year, and Tatum will be back in the mix for another first-team All-NBA selection and probably his 5th All-Star appearance, which will make him 3rd Blue Devil to reach 5 All-Star appearances. So that's the 23 guaranteed guys. Possibility of adding more players to that number as the season goes on. Thank you guys so much for listening to me ramble about 23 players and my ranking here. Make sure to follow at Duke_Wisdom on Twitter/X, Instagram, and Threads, which is sort of dying, but you can find it there as well. I post this podcast to YouTube. You can find Duke Wisdom on YouTube as well. And anywhere you listen to this podcast, make sure to share it, follow it, subscribe to it. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll catch you guys next week.